budget and the budget situation and where we now stand. And partly because we give you some idea of how we think we're going to work our way through this. And just to kind of set a national and state context for this, there's no question that the university is going to be squeezed by the state, but also as well by the feds. So last week, President Obama calls in 15 representative presidents of colleges and universities from across the country. Across the country, inside the Beltway, means somewhere on the East Coast. But essentially that conversation was really about two things. One about the performance of higher education institutions and the increased desire to produce more baccalaureates, but it was also about a second issue, which is you guys are going to stop raising tuition. And so the squeeze is really going to come on in terms of our ability to raise tuition. So our two chief funding sources, state appropriation and tuition, both are going to see pressure. And that means that as an institution, we're going to have to be able to provide the same quality education with basically sometimes the same resources. And we're going to have to figure out a way to work our way through this. Just to bring you up to date again on the university's budget from FY11 to FY12, where we are now, the state, you can see the state general fund, we lost another $30 million. We're down to $103 million from the state. Tuition and fees are up, and that's partly the moderate tuition increase we did, and partly the impact of simply larger enrollments. One of the things we've talked about increasingly is with these two sources of funding, which is what we generally run the university on, that's the flexible money that can go towards hiring new faculty, operating budgets in colleges, and so on, is that we're going to increasingly have to look and think of different ways to deal with auxiliary funds. That's a large amount of money. In many ways, auxiliary funds can crisscross back and forth across the university depending on what a major priority might be. So I think increasingly what we're going to be doing is all the money is green. Nobody has a preemptive right on any of the money. And so when we develop priority lists, it's going to have to, in a sense, be based on all of those funds. So we will probably have much more centralized budgeting as we go forward. Just to give you an idea of the state actual expenditures from FY08 to FY11, the instruction budget has remained one of the key aspects of where we expend money. And then you see the academic support, public service, organized research. None of these things at this point can be eliminated. And that's why I made the point. We simply have to find a way to run the institution on the money we have. This is probably the most worrisome of the slides. This looks at where we were through the various years. At our high point in FY08, we had, between the tuition and state dollars, about $15,000 behind each and every student. And then as the cuts came, we're down $60 million from the state. But what's happened, and that reflects the loss of that $60 million, now we're down about $13,500 behind each and every student we educate. That's a huge drop, needless to say. And what we want to do is we want to try to stabilize there. I'd like to tell you that the state is going to confess that it was wrong and is going to return all our money. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And so that's our challenge as an institution, is to figure out how to do this. So let's talk about a couple of the ideas that we have for trying to manage things better. And I'll put the problem as follows. We're going to have more students. We're going to have fewer state dollars. We're going to have fewer faculty per student. We're going to have more accountability. That's my favorite. So if they take away the money, they want to hold us more accountable. I've never figured that out. Okay. We're going to have lower tuition, and we have to produce more baccalaureates and make students more successful. That is all of public higher education's challenge going forward. So what's the NAU response going to be? And I'll try to describe it in 3 or 4 big items, and then we can talk about it. One is we have put a huge emphasis on student success. And why did we do that? Well, for 2 reasons. One is it's the right thing to do. The students coming to us now are often not as well prepared. College often is a challenge for them, but national state governments are saying it's a matter of economic survival, that we have to have more baccalaureates. And so we have to get really focused on making students successful. Then there's another very practical reason. And the practical reason is the fact that when the legislature opens in January, they will be discussing performance funding. It's all right there in front of them. The 2 key ones we keep talking about is the number of baccalaureates produced and the number of student credit hours completed. So the reason we focused early on last year on DFW rates was because those students who are not completing courses are dollars lost to the institution. That's a real simple equation for us to take a look at.